Tonight, Liam and Aldo will be diving into the importance of financial planning, especially when it comes to special needs planning, which has many aspects to it in order to protect the much-needed government benefits that help care for your loved ones. Thanks for joining this discussion. Feel free to drop any questions you have in the comments.
I tell you what, Aldo, I love the video because everybody's smiling and laughing, and I'm going to get you smiling and get you. But we look like two mob bosses. I'm telling you. So we got to tell people, listen to our show or else. Thank God we got Heather's smiling face up here tonight, helping us out. And anyway, I'm going to do something that I know you want to do, but I want to do it beforehand. I want to say hi to Mateo.
Thank you.
I want to get that out of the way because I know that's your boy, and I wanted him to know that I got to say it first. So tonight's going to be a special night. We're going to talk about some great things with what you're doing and what we've done and collaborated to do with each other and for each other, and talk about your journey in the group and some things like that. But I want to do a real quick housekeeping like we do every week. Last week we had a real good show. We had some neat ideas flowing last week and all of that. And what we want to do is I want to explain to people we're changing our format a little bit. This will be the last live for a while. We're going to do another one on May the 30th with Don Graves. He's going to be coming in. I think he's in Philadelphia. He'll be doing something on reverse mortgages and how to position those to help your clients find additional money. So obviously we know you can't use reverse mortgage for investing and stuff, but he's written a pretty good book. Matter of fact, I got it right here. He just wrote a book. I'm going to disclose your book later, Al, but this is his book that he wrote. Sent it out to me, Housing of Wealth, an Advisor's Guide to Reverse Mortgage. So he'll be on the show coming up, and we're going to be still doing some cool stuff. We're going to be you'll see a lot of activity on the group, but we won't be doing the lives as much. We'll be doing more webinars, more training. We're going to be doing more promotion for like Heather's CRM people, the Wazi. Is it Wazi? Help me out, Heather. I get it screwed up. Swayze. They're going to be doing some cool stuff. So the whole reason we're going to be moving is because moving the format a little bit, Aldo, is because people are wanting more training stuff. They're wanting more opportunities to make money. And even though I think the lives are informative and they're great, we're going to be doing stuff like that. Like I'm going to be doing a webinar. I just talked to Drew this afternoon on how agents can create income to where it's almost like a residual income, right? A lot of the problems in the industry is agents are starving because they don't know how to make money and make it last, right? They make a big check, they spend it, they're out of money. So I've got a pretty good training class on how you can do that. So we're going to be doing stuff like that. I'm going to have you come on and have you do some webinars as well. All the paid members are going to have some freedoms with us. So if you're not a paid member, you're going to be missing out because we're going to be doing a lot more stuff with the paid members. And that being said, Aldo, that's how we met. You was one of our members, and we talked, and we were talking, and help me if I'm wrong, but you were saying to me, you said, Liam, you said, I don't know what direction I want to go. And I said, you almost sound like Alice in Wonderland. She goes up to the Mad Hatter or the Chester Cat. I can't remember which one, but she said, which way do I go? And there's two roads. And he said, well, where are you going? And she says, I don't know. And he said, well, how can I tell you where to go if we don't know where you're going? And so we had that conversation. And I asked you a little bit of personal stuff. I said, well, tell me a little bit about your life. And I'm going to have you do that here in a second. That's why we mentioned Mateo. And you said, I have a special needs son. And I'm in that world. And I said, well, Aldo, there's your niche. There's your net. There's your opportunity. There's your business. And I think you got an epiphany with me, and you said, man, you're right. So let me let you take it from there, and then we'll go into some questions and stuff. But Aldo, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about how this evolved and why we're here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Liam, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on again. Always a pleasure spending time with you, sharing some thoughts and ideas and really helping other agents really in their businesses and help them find direction. And also, Heather, thank you. Love being here with you guys. So you're right. I remember the first time that you and I talked, I watched the video where you were talking about special needs. That kind of triggered something in me, but then I reached out to you. We started talking, and I think myself, as like any agent really in the beginning of their careers or sometime during their careers, will start questioning. I mean, should I really be all over the place trying to help everybody and please everybody, or should I focus on something that I do really, really well, that I really understand? And that's when you and I started talking about, you know, my personal life and the fact that I do have a child with special needs. And then you say, well, listen, you seem to know this world enough, and you know, you're a professional in our industry, so why not put, you know, one together and just really focus on these families? And that was the day that this whole special needs family planning and support project started, and how I've been focusing on helping families just like mine protect today, but also plan for the future.
Well, and you know, one of the things that I want you to kind of elaborate on a little bit too. Tell the guys and ladies out there that are listening, how valuable is that free 15-minute call you get every month with your paid membership? You
Can't
know,
put a price.
it's longer than 15 minutes because me and you don't stop talking. But anyway, go ahead.
I don't think you can put a price tag on it really, because you know, you have a chance to spend time with you, who has been around in this business forever, knows the ins and outs, but also, you know, you have a different perspective on what we're trying to do. So someone who really, you know, looking in from the outside with the experience and hearing us, and can really, you know, shorten the cycle, you know, of us really getting on the right track, and you know, to, you know, top production, or you know, in whatever niche that, you know, that an agent is working in. So yeah, I don't think you can put a price tag on it really. You way undervalue, you know, what you deliver. You're underpriced what you deliver.
And,
For sure.
and that's why we're changing the format. But I do want to tell you this though, in all fairness, and I'm glad Heather joins us a lot of times because she's a big part of what we do, and so is Drew, and so is Colleen for what she's worth. I love Colleen to death, but I always tease her about, you know, we got to get her in a lane. But Colleen's a great person to pick up where a lot of us drop things, and Zach's really good. My son does he's done some videos for you and helped you with that. But my whole team that's involved with us, this isn't just me. I mean, I'm the one that's the outside. I'm the guy you see and the guy you listen to. But I think one of the things that helped you was they helped you with your group. Yes.
Oh, 100%. So when we first met, I was still trying to figure out, you know, the whole Facebook group thing, you know, how to go about, you know, growing the group, but also nurturing, because, you know, you can focus on growth, but if you don't take care of the people who are already in it, then eventually the group is just going to die. And so having the whole team really sharing their knowledge and their tips, and even helping with tech, really, really invaluable. So you get a lot more than just Liam, which it's not just Liam. I mean, you're still getting a lot, but you get a whole team of professionals that can really help you with, you know, whatever projects you're working on with marketing.
And I tell people all the time, Aldo, that, you know, for the $97 that we charge, you know, and I'm not trying to do commercial for that today, but we're just telling the people the truth. You get me on retainer. I mean, you try to get an attorney on retainer for that much, right? I mean, we help you with case study. We help you with case design. Yeah. We got you in touch with Phil Graham on the beneficiary thing. You know, there's a lot of things, a lot of products that we put in your lap that's helped you not only help your community, but help your current clients. You know what I mean? And I think that's a big part of what we're doing. But I want to give them one more announcement of what we're doing for you, because it's going to be probably, I would say, I would like to have it done by the end of summer, but most of you know about the Babe Ruth Bucket, Myths and Truths About Tax-Free Retirement. It's a 4-book series. But we also have the brand, and Aldo is going to be our first agent to use the brand. We're going to have a book called the Babe Ruth Bucket, which is the brand. Myths and Truths of Special Needs Planning or Special Needs Funding. We haven't decided yet. And it'll be Aldo's book. I'll be doing the forward. That is going to be available to agents in our new format as well. But Aldo, I wanted them to know you're going to be the first guy that we're going to do it with. I know you're excited. Going to have your own book. You'll have a seminar with it. You'll have a webinar with it. You'll have everything, all the tools that you need. And so I'm excited. I think that's going to be wonderful. But now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of why you are here. I mentioned Mateo because I think he's yeah, I think if me and you were to be humble, and if you're never humble, God will humiliate you, right? Mateo is not just special because he's a special needs child. but he's a pretty good. He's got a pretty good personality. Me and Heather watch him all the time on Facebook, and we try to follow you. And he seems like I know he just had a major back surgery, and he's already defied the odds, and he's back in school, and half a day and all this stuff. But tell us a little bit about the journey with maybe the way things began and where you are today, and then we'll get into some questions about people that might have some needs or some questions. One of the great things about networking, and I know that's one of the things that's great about this group. Let's say I have a special needs client. I don't deal with that. I can reach out to Aldo, and you'll split the commission, whatever, and everybody wins. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we were talking at the beginning of this chat. I mean, when you specialize in something, then you're that go-to person that other professionals can come to and really, ask for help, right? And that's a really great benefit that we get from being a part of your inner circle of agents here, is because we have access to all of these folks, and we can really collaborate and help more people. At the end of the day, we're trying to change the world, right? But it's hard to do that alone. So if we have other people aligned with us, willing to help, then we can certainly reach even more families and help more people. And at the end of the day, that's why we're in this business anyway, to really change lives, right? But
tell us a little bit about Mateo and the journey.
Yeah, so Mateo is almost 13 years old. So our journey started about 13 years ago, and Mateo wasn't only born with the special needs. He was actually a preemie baby. So he spent 3 months in NICU before he ever came home. So, our journey started with a lot of fear, uncertainty. We didn't know if he was ever going to be able to breathe without, his CPAP or oxygen at home. And actually, when he finally came home, we had him baptized. We're a Catholic family, so we had him baptized in a Catholic church almost immediately, because honestly, we didn't think he was going to make it, from what the doctors were telling us. So we just want to make sure that he was baptized before that ever happened. So, but that wasn't the case. And, we just, like any parent, first time parents didn't really know what we're doing. Plus, we're dealing with a lot of health issues, right? It's funny how you get so caught up in the today and what you need to do today that you never really have time to stop and plan for the future, right? So, and that's the biggest thing that I see with families with children with special needs, is that nobody is really allowing themselves the opportunity to plan for the future, because we're so caught up on today. What do I need to do right now? What does the next 5 minutes look like? And so, but I think it's important that we stop. And eventually, at one point, we started thinking about things like college funding and things like that. And then as we started learning and doing some of these things, then a lot of other challenges popped up, like raising a child with special needs that's receiving government services is different than raising a child, period, right? Because now you not only have to find ways to accumulate wealth and really plan for all of those things, but you have to do it in a manner that doesn't interfere with the services that they're currently receiving, or maybe services that they may receive in the future. So that's when, I had a reality check, and I was like, listen, I don't know anything about this, right? So I need to connect with the people that do know, and ask and learn, right, and do my research. And so I became not only a dad, but a dad of special needs, which I had to learn all of these things. And you never really stop learning.
Let me stop you real quick. I think you realize it's not such a small world, is it?
No, actually,
I would say opportunities necessarily. I think there is in the business, but I think what I would really say is it really gets you to think that there's a lot of people out there that are going through what you're going through.
Yeah, 100%. So there are a lot of families out there that you may not even realize that they're dealing with the special needs at home, right? There's special needs come in all different forms and shapes and sizes and colors, right? So I learned that it's not just what you can see. Sometimes there's underlying conditions that the eye can't see. So But I
And
realized.
Mateo has what conditions of Mateo?
So Mateo has achondroplasia, which is the most common type of dwarfism. So, when you look at him, it's pretty clear. I mean, you can see right away, right? Um, but other kids or even adults, I mean, it's not all that clear. So, but what I learned, Liam, is that every family that's raising a child that has some type of a disability or a challenge, they have their own story and their own fears, their own anxieties, right? And they are trying to reach out to people. They're trying to connect with people who understand so they can actually share what they're feeling and ask their questions. So community is something that's very, very important when you're going through something like this. Finding a group of people that understand and that you can talk to.
Well, and I know that we want to get into some of the meat here. Let some of the biggest concerns that the parents of special needs children have. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but kind of get a little deeper, because I know I've seen some of your shows where you've actually had some specialists on talking about. One of the things I know that that we had talked about, and we've talked about in the green room tonight, was that there's a lot of things that are maybe not so clear, and maybe you if you don't have the right guidance, like you said, you might lose a benefit, and it's not inexpensive to raise a special needs child, is it?
That's right, absolutely. So it really takes a village to raise a child with special needs, and I'm not talking just about family and friends, right? I'm talking professionals, whether it's medical professionals or therapists and professionals in other areas that have knowledge about things that you need to be paying attention to. Otherwise, you could miss out on opportunities for your child, but two, you could really mess up their benefits, unintentionally. And so, having access to these services, whether it's Social Security income or Medicaid, SSDI, Medicare, Med waiver, all of these things is certainly a priority, because medical costs are just, we all know, right? I mean, the health crisis that the country is in, and healthcare for a child with special needs can cost literally millions and millions of dollars over their lifetime. So that's really priority. What are the benefits and services that my child can qualify for? How do I get him, and how do I maintain him? How do I keep him so that my child will have the best care possible throughout his or her life? So that I would say that's the number one priority, right? But parents, even when they have everything in place now in terms of services, the one big thing that every single parent tells me is, who's going to take care of my child when I'm gone? Right. And I mean, that's obviously, something that every parent thinks about. But typically we say, well, when my child is, 18, 19 or 20 or whatever, they'll be independent, right? They'll have their own lives and, their own families and jobs. But that's not necessarily the case when you have a child with special needs. So the concern of not being around for our kids doesn't stop at 18.
Well, and that rolls right into my next question, because me and you've seen a lot of the things that I talk about, and I know that we've had shows on it. The biggest fear that people have is outliving their 401k. What about outliving your special needs child outliving you, right? So that to me is a similar situation, yes. And so that being the case, when you're planning for retirement, what should special needs parents be considering? That should be a number one, yes. What if my child outlives me, right?
Right. And we'll get to that in a second. But what you touched on a point that's so important, which is a lot of parents tell me when I talk to them that they would rather bury their own children than having to deal with the uncertainty of what is life going to be like when I'm no longer here. And that to me is heartbreaking. And I tell parents, listen, I know it's scary, but it doesn't have to be that way, right? That's why we're here, to have a conversation and start thinking about these things. And the biggest thing is retirement planning for the parents. I mean, the typical family, mom and dad will plan for their retirement. So really you have two people retiring eventually, and you have to plan for that. Now, when you have a child with special needs, Now all of a sudden you're having to plan for 3 retirements. And
I think what you're hitting on is, and I think people have to understand this, is that you just got an extra cog in your wheel to think about. But not only that, you have to. I tell people all the time, I say, listen, when you are dealing with that circumstance, I think sometimes people have to understand that you have to not. I guess what I'm trying, and we'll get into this further. You got to find somebody that you trust, that when you're not here, and if they do outlive you, who am I going to leave the funding with? How am I going to set the funding up? Why would I give so much funding? And I think the other thing that I think is a big problem, and I know we've talked about it several times, is I don't think people understand that it's not something that you can just throw a Band-Aid on. Yes.
No, 100%. I mean, you do have to be careful and plan ahead of time. You want to talk to all of the professionals that you need to talk to make sure that what you're doing now will yield the results that you expect later, right? Because there's very little room for, a course correction, if you will, right? I mean, you have to start off on the right path. Otherwise, you could really potentially hurt your child's future. And again, unintentionally, right? I mean, nobody wants to do harm, to our children, but with special needs, you have to really, really be careful, right? So things like who's going to be in charge of making medical decisions on behalf of my child if they if they cannot make those decisions on their own, which is the case with a lot of families, right? You have children who, just won't be ever in a place where they can make important decisions without assistance. So you need to have someone like either a guardian, with a legal guardianship of that child, or you can have someone with a power of attorney to make certain decisions. So there's really not a recipe, right? I mean, like a template that you can just fill in the blanks. Each family is different and unique and requires, very personalized planning.
Well, and I think one of the issues that I ran into with a client of mine, because she was taking care of her brother who was special needs, and he's in his 70s, and he worked as a janitor for years, and then he's in a home now, and she passed away. Well, he has no family, so the state, in all intents and purposes, is taking over, and dictating, he had to move to a couple of different facilities. They've had to get him Medicaid. And there's nobody they have nobody. So I'm sure that's not the only horror story that's out there, right? I'm sure there's a bunch of them. And if people, one of the things I'm trying to make sure people understand, and I think it's great what you're doing. This isn't about selling policies. This isn't about trying to find annuities or it's about funding the proper way to protect and save the longevity of however that child may live or not live. Yes. And I think the mistake people make is, oh, this is just another way of trying to sell something. Well, if that's how you're looking at it, you're looking at it completely wrong. We know that you have the right tools. Yes, you have to buy them, but you have to use them to fund properly to protect what you're trying to do. Everybody has car insurance, health insurance, homeowners insurance, all of that stuff that can be replaced, right? But you as an individual, Aldo, if you're not here tomorrow, the only way you have any power is by what you set up if you leave this world tomorrow, right? And that's why I try to tell people all insurance is, and all those type of things they're just love letters to your family. And if your love letter doesn't have anything in it, that's on you, and I get it. You're gone, you don't matter. But somebody's going to be affected, right? It's kind of like suicide, right? It passes the pain on to somebody else. Yes. Yeah,
100%. Your decisions, whichever way you go, will have consequences that your family will have to deal with, and really, lifelong consequences. And so, when you said, I may not be here tomorrow, right, Liam? I mean, something could happen. I mean, I could get hit by a bus or whatever. So even if I'm not here, my income will be. Okay. And that's the least I can do for my family, to make sure that if something were to happen to me tomorrow or a year from now or 50 years from now, that income will be there. So I'll be able to perform my duties, whether or not I'm here to see it. Right. And I think that's really, but it's a tough conversation to have, because it involves first, you no longer being here. Second, who's going to take care of your child? So, it's funny how, human beings have a tendency of trying to avoid pain, right? So that's, I was having this conversation the other day with another agent in my company, and, people do more things, to get away from pain than to get closer to pleasure, right? And that's why you see people taking pain meds all the time, but not really a lot of people taking supplements every day, right? Because when you're in pain, then you want to get away from that pain. But that's my job, in this world of special needs planning, is to not cause pain, but really talk to people about their pain that they already have, and then together find a way to solve it.
Well, we had talked about, we have a lot of times, me and you will, we tease each other about our pictures and all that stuff, and our groups and everything. And I told you, and I still believe that we can. I'm trying to get Heather on this because she's really good at doing the stuff that I do wrong and fixing it, which is quite about every single day. But I told you that I think I'm a huge fan in the song, people let me tell you about my best friend, the Courtship of Eddie Father's theme song in the 1970s. Now the young people won't know what I'm talking about, but Google that song. That to me is the theme song for special needs children in my heart. And I have a Down syndrome nephew, so I have a part of my world is in that as well. But I think everybody's affected in some way or somehow, maybe not directly, but indirectly. And so I have said to you 100 times that you got to change your theme song, make it that, but I know we got to go by rules and they probably won't let us do it. But if Heather can figure out a way, I would love for that to be your theme song. And I love the thing where every time at the end of that show, Eddie says something prophetic to his dad, about something. So I know you've had those conversations with Mateo. Yes. And so it just makes me think of you when I see that. But I want to follow up on what exactly. I know part of the planning is the funding, but before that happens, you have to have a trust, right? And why is that? And what kind of trust is it? Is it going to be any old trust, or should it be a special needs? Should it be a spendthrift? Should it have some clauses in it? What would be? And again, this is where some of the shows you do, you have experts that answer this. You've got a great attorney; she does a really good job, and maybe we'll bring her on and do a show with her as well. But what from your circumstance, that was something that came up pretty much before anything else. Yes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So the government benefits that the child with special needs is receiving now can be affected by how much assets the individual owns. Whether it's a minor child, then they look at the family. When it's an adult child, they'll look at the individual. But so there's some regulations, and it's very, very small amounts of assets, right? So imagine like if you own over $2,000 in overall assets with very few exclusions, then you are essentially disqualified from certain benefits. So how do we accumulate wealth, which we know we're going to need a lot of money to support that child in the future, while at the same time preserving the benefits that they're receiving today, right? So one of the tools, and probably the most important to have in special needs planning, is what's called a special needs trust. And what the special needs trust is essentially, and again, I mean, like you said, I'm not an attorney, but I have personal experience with this. Plus, I use this every day with clients and families that I help. But that's why I have an awesome attorney that I work with who does all of the legal and estate planning. But a special needs trust essentially is a trust, right? It kind of looks like any other trust, in a sense where it has a grantor, the person that forms the trust. It has a trustee, which is the person that controls the trust and the disbursement of funds, or in other words, spending the money in the trust. And the beneficiary of the trust is the person with special needs. And what we can accomplish with a special needs trust is that as long as you're accumulating assets owned by the trust and not the child directly, the child can still benefit from all of those financial, tools and income that you're building for them, while at the same time not having their benefits directly affected by those, limits, income and asset limitations. So it essentially allows you, with certain limitations, there are some federal rules and state rules and things that you have to abide by. but essentially it gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of being able to grow, like what I like to say, a big pile of money for your child's future without disqualifying your child for benefits.
Well, and one of the things you just said, and I think you did this in your last show, I think maybe 2 shows back. Every state's different, so you got to know your state's. You may be doing something. Where are you again? Where are you at, Aldo? What state you in?
So I'm in Florida.
Yeah, you're in Florida, and so your rules are going to be different than somebody maybe in Alaska or somebody in Montana or something, right? So that you might want to, I know you talked about that on your show, but make sure people know that when you're doing that, I know you do it every time, but tell them, listen, you got to make sure you check your own state, because a lot of these rules, now some of them are similar, I get it, but a lot of states are different, maybe not too much, but if you don't know one thing because you think it's in another state, it's like, when I do TODs for families, transfer on death. Well, not every state allows that. So people are like, well, my mom has it. So no, she doesn't. She lives in Indiana. They don't have that. You can't do that in Indiana. Oh, well, what do we do now? And so you might have to set up a trust or whatever. So touch on that a little bit about how the states are different as well.
That's right. Yeah, no, absolutely. Not only do you have to look at your state laws, but also every family is different. So the trust, I guess what we're trying to say is, you can't just go to a website, on the internet and download a template for your special needs trust. And again, fill in the blanks and there you have it. I mean, it will not work. I mean, it may work, but it may leave the door open for a lot of, problems in the future. So what you want to do is, talk to an attorney that works in your state where you currently live, that knows, you see, not every estate planning attorney can also work with special needs, because, it's a sub area, it's a sub niche of the estate planning. So an attorney that does work with special needs will have extensive knowledge on the services and benefits, right? Like say, Medicaid, SSI, how those rules apply in that state, what the limits are. So you really need to talk to me. When I had to go and find the attorney to do my trust or my son's trust, and that was, I think, 8 years ago. It took me 10 interviews with different attorneys until I found one that I could actually trust, right? And I knew nothing. I knew very little about it. Now, knowing what I do now, I mean, I have an attorney that I partner with, so it's easy now. Families that I talk to don't have to go out and try to find someone. They have the option to work with, the attorney that I always recommend, because she really knows, our laws and what needs to be done. So
and it works 2 ways, right? Because now she has you that can help them, because you understand the proper way of funding. So that's going to roll us right into our next question. Yeah. How can you fund a special needs trust? What kind of funding options? I know life insurance is one of them, but what are some of the options that are out there? And again, I think you're touching on a great thing, because now because she didn't have a guy like you, right? Now she does. And so now you guys can kind of, complement each other. Yes.
Yeah, 100%. So the conversation can start on the financial planning side, and, they end up, in her office talking about the trust, or vice versa. They could be talking about the trust and guardianships and power of attorney, letter of intention, and all those things. The next thing you know, now they're talking to me about financial. So that's why I think it's important, if anybody watching is focused on a specific niche, to really build a network of professionals who work with the same demographics or the same market, because then you can elevate the kind of, the level of services that you deliver, right, to your clients. Now, whether or not you're directly involved in those other services, which certainly is my case, right? But let's talk about funding.
You become a center of influence, Aldo. You become a center of influence. The people you're working with becomes a center of influence. And I preach it all the time. If you're not doing business with me, I'm not doing business with you. And I think, people say, oh, you can't live that way. Yes, you can. My doctors are my clients. My dentist is my client. My mechanic. Same thing with what you're doing. If these people that are collaborating with you, there's a reason. They trust you. You trust them. People will trust you because of that. It becomes a big, huge nest, right? And everybody knows, hey, listen, when I'm talking to so-and-so estate planning attorney, I know who Aldo is because they're tied together, right? And I think it's okay for people to understand that, listen, I'm doing this for the benefit of the individual. I'm doing this for the benefit of the group, right? And I think one of the great things about your group, and I think you'll agree with me, I hate Facebook ads. I think a lot of people are starting to realize they're not, but the group brings in people for you. Yes.
Yeah, so our group is a community of support and sharing knowledge, tips, and all of that. But at the same time, we nurture those members, those families, and we build trust over time. Really, it's really hard to decide who you're going to put your financial future, in whose hands you're going to put your financial future. So I guess, that building trust over time is important. And I understand that happens also in my group, right? So again, I mean, we're not in a hurry. We don't have the group to convert leads into sales. I mean, those things will happen and already happen over time. But really, it's a place for us to build relationships first, right? And I think
they have to find the necessity, right? They have to find that. You got to find the need first. You got to find the problem to solve it. But I tell people it's not so much that you have to act on it, but if you haven't done anything, I get moving. But one of the great things about your group is, like, you had the lady on there that talked about music, right? And how music helps some autistic children or different, whatever. And there's places like down the street from me, for because I'm in, a little bit attached to the Down syndrome community. They have horseback riding and taking care of the animals and stuff like that. So your community isn't just based on funding and trust. It's based on a whole bunch of stuff, and that's why everybody trusts everybody. One of the things that I want to get into, because we're past our question time. We're not getting any questions, so we're going to go all the way to 6:45. But this is the part that I know you thought was important. And I think it's important, and I know Heather believes in this as well. The living benefits part of this program, people forget, is also a part of the special needs funding and trust and understanding. Yes?
Yeah, 100%. So, and that ties in perfectly with, your previous question, which is, what are some ways that you can fund the special needs trust, right? So essentially, you can fund the special needs trust with anything of value, right? A checking account where you will sign the beneficiary of that account as a special needs trust. Now it's a way to fund it, right? I mean, you can transfer those funds into the trust. You can have real estate, or you can have your retirement account beneficiary, the special needs trust. So when you pass away, whatever money is left gets, transferred into the trust, right? So really any type of assets can be used to fund the trust. But probably, not probably, but definitely my favorite of all is through life insurance. And I'll tell you why. Because it's the cheapest money you can buy. Really, I mean, it's the cheapest dollar you find anywhere else. You can really buy a dollar for pennies and have it pay out upon your passing, so that at that time, all of that income that you're no longer earning can be replaced via the death benefit. But life insurance does that, and any policy from any carrier or any insurance company will pay a death benefit, right? That's what life insurance is known for, but that's what we call death insurance, right? Now, what if you don't die? What if something happens to you and you don't die? What if you get sick? Special needs parents get sick all the time. I mean, we're humans like anybody else. So just because you're raising a child with special needs doesn't mean you're never going to get cancer, or that you won't have a heart attack or a stroke, or that you're not going to be chronically ill, and need someone, take you to the bathroom and spoon feed you every day, right? Or that you're not going to be driving down the highway, get into a major accident, and now you're wheelchair bound, or, you're in a coma for God knows how long. So we're not immune to all of these things that are happening out there, right? So if something like that happens, and now all of a sudden it's not just your special needs child that needs help, but also you need help, and you don't have your income, now that could be really a disaster in a family raising a child with special needs. So when I first heard living benefits in the life insurance conversation, I thought that the people were talking about how we can accumulate cash tax-free and use that cash as income in the future, which is true. We can do all of those things, but living benefits can do more. then that living benefits can actually pay your death benefit while you're still alive, right? If you get chronically ill, or if you get like one of those things, like I mentioned, cancer, stroke, heart attack, and in some cases, critical injury. Also, it really depends on the company. And so the ability to accelerate your death benefit and receive those tax-free dollars, while you're still living, can be the difference between you making it, because now, if you don't have to worry about your bills getting paid every month, and you can focus 100% on getting healthier or healthy again, you're going to have a much better chance of recovery. Yes. I mean, that's really, going through, chemotherapy, not having to worry about the mortgage is one thing.
Well, and that ties into what you said earlier. It's all about proper planning and talking to the right people. Yes, because that's the problem. People just want to cover. There's a bigger canvas to paint here than just one little corner. You got to cover everything. I tell people it's like a house. In the middle of winter, you got all the windows shut. You don't want any doors open, or you're going to have an issue. Yes, and so I think what you're saying, and I think people need to understand, that's the importance of having somebody like yourself, somebody like Heather, who works with government employees, Colleen with the dental hygienist. That's what's important about having your group and your niche. People come to you and they expect you to help them with the planning that they don't know to do, and I'm gonna let Heather chime in here in a minute, but I had, and she's been so good at just letting me and you go at it, but I know she's got, I'd like to hear a little bit of her perspective, because I know she's done some neat things, and she's got some things that I know that she could add to the conversation. But one of the questions that I had for you, and it's kind of I guess the best way to put it is that, if, let's say that the family that's taking care of the special needs, everybody has everything in place, they pass on, and then the child's by himself or herself, and the money's there, everything's great. And as I say, there's a good nest egg to take care of that child for the rest of that child's life. The child passes so many years down the road. What then can they do with that funding? Now, I suggest people put it either in a foundation, or put it in, or help other families. But since nobody else is around, what are some of your unique ideas to tell them? I'm sure they fit around what I said, but because that can happen as well, right? I mean, that the individual that you're taking care of, the funding outlives that individual.
Yes, and that can happen, and it does happen often. And I would say that if you've done proper planning, and you had your special needs trust set up ahead of time, then the trust will have a beneficiary once the person passes, right? So it could be your other children, or whoever you assign as a trustee, or a guardian of your child, or whoever is involved in taking care of that child. You can set up those people as beneficiaries of the special needs trust to kind of compensate them for some of the work that they might be doing and not charging you for it, right? So that's one way to do it. But here's what's interesting, and that can happen. Again, like I said, if you plan ahead of time and you have the right kind of special needs trust, which is called a third-party trust, which means that you really were proactive and you got the trust before you needed it. Now, what happens a lot, unfortunately, is the child runs into money, whether it's grandparents that left them an inheritance, or a friend, or whoever, and now the child, their benefits get cut off, and in order to resume benefits, they have to start, or create a special needs trust. But in this case, it'll be a first party trust. And guess what? You can still resume services and whatnot, but then whatever is left in the trust after the child passes is subject to a Medicaid payback. So now the government's going to look at whatever's left and say, hey, listen, because we spent so much money on this child, now it's our turn to get some of our money back. So now you don't have anything left for anybody that you choose. So if you start planning ahead of time, you can make sure that they get the services, and whatever's left goes to whoever you want. Whereas, if you wait until the last second, then the government is watching us, man. Now, let me tell you something. All of these agencies, they know exactly what we're doing. They know exactly what we have. We had a Medicaid review a couple months ago, And they actually reminded me that I had an old brokerage account with some firm that I completely forgot about. There was only like a couple $100 in there. But they said, by the way, we want statements from that account. I was like, oh, shoot, I do have that account. So they know you, right? They do their audits. They go as far as sometimes, depending on the case, they will go out and send inspectors to go and watch you out in the streets and take pictures of you and do, things like that. So they know your every move. So we do everything legally. We're not trying to hide anything by any means, but we want to use every single tool that's available to us to maximize what our children get.
Well, and again, that's why you use a professional like yourself and the people that you're connected with. So I'm gonna let Heather say a couple things. I know she's probably been taking notes and stuff, and I know that she's been in the world of the government side that was her first profession, and now she does this with us. So Heather, share a little bit, if you can, as we finish up here tonight, of some of your thoughts of what we've talked about this evening.
Pre-planning is just so important, and so is education. I just look back at myself that the only insurance people I had met along the way were my car insurance people. I never had the education about what life insurance could do for me. And now I just feel it's so important that even if I never get a sale from it, is to provide the education out there that people know what life insurance can do for you later on in life, and it's not just a death benefit.
Yeah, and I think that people, like I said, I've been in the business in this world for 30 years, and I'm a big believer in it. And I'm telling you, Aldo, handing somebody a $5,000 check versus a $500,000 check, there's a huge difference. And the change is, both of them are going to have changes that you hand them the check. Both of their lives are going to change when I drop those off. Yes. And I feel more comfortable dropping off the bigger check. I never wrote policies when I was in the business under $500,000 because of the way I started my business. And I tell people that, you learn quick in this business that it's not about pens and TV sets and trips. It's nice to hear, it's nice to see, and all that wonderful stuff. But it's what we're doing. And that's why we're successful, and that's why we do what we do. But I know that you're going to have me on your show because we've talked about that, so I can't wait. I got Kelly Roach tomorrow at 3:00 on the Kelly Roach show, so I'll be on Kelly Roach podcast tomorrow talking to her. I know you enjoyed our little talk with her that couple weeks back, so we're going to be doing that tomorrow. And then I've got a couple other ones, but I can't wait to come on your show. Maybe I'll bring Heather. I don't know. She can at least help us from screwing up all the technical stuff that we tend to do. But I'm gonna let you have the last word, Aldo. Have you say goodbye, and then we'll see you guys on the 30th for sure. Maybe another live or two in between. But we're gonna be changing our format, like I said, and there'll be a lot of stuff going on, but it'll be a little bit different. So finish up, Aldo, and you can say goodbye for us.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you again for giving special needs families a voice. You and Heather for putting this together and inviting me over here and really allowing me to share some thoughts and ideas and hopefully impact, even if it's just one family that gets impacted by this, then that's why I do what I do. Really, education is number one because we don't know what we don't know. So, as with, anything in life, especially if you're raising a child with special needs, you need to be open to the idea that, yes, your child better than anyone else. When they're hungry, when they're sad, when they, want to say something to you. But those are things that you do know. Now, you may not know what you don't know. And that's why people like me, do what I do. And the team that we have around me, which is a fantastic team, really providing information and resources and help answering questions. Because at the end of the day, if we don't help each other out, then the world's not going to help us, right? So we need to look out for each other. And so a lot of conversations that special needs parents need to have are very uncomfortable, okay? 100%. There's a lot of conversations that I have that I wish I didn't have to. But, I don't really have a choice, or I do have a choice, and I can do, just turn my back to it and then completely ignore it and pretend that the problem doesn't exist. But every time, I'm faced with a challenge, and that's really my suggestion to any family with special needs children out there, is try to think about what would your child want you to do if it was up to them to decide. Would your child ask you to leave them millions of dollars so that they could have all the help that they need? Or will they tell you, no, mom, it's okay. I need all this help, but we'll wing it, after you're gone. I mean, what would they ask you to do? Right. And then just start there. Right. Would they ask you to try and preserve their services because they feel that those therapies are helping them? Or would they say, listen, I don't mind walking backwards now because, who needs all of these things? So try to think, put yourself in their shoes and what would they ask you to do, and start there and ask for help.
Well, Aldo, thanks for coming on. We will talk again. And like I said, I know we're going to be talking more later about, doing something on your show. I know you got a lot of neat things coming up. Appreciate you, Heather. Thanks again for being with us again tonight. Like I said, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of things if it wasn't for Heather, Drew, and Zach and Colleen and the group, and George and everybody that we have that's in behind the scenes. It's very important. I tell people a lot of times it's the guy that cleans the pulpit before the pastor gets in it. That if it wasn't done, there would be maybe be a lot of little bit different speech on that Sunday. But anyway, thank you, Aldo. We'll see you next time. Heather, send us off or whatever we do to say goodbye.
Thanks again.
Well, we don't have an outro today, so goodbye.